Hello everybody, Randy Patrick here with Housing Bubble 2.0 news of the week. A few things to talk about, but first of all, I hope everyone's doing well this week. I know the nation is in a little bit of a cold front. It's very cold in many locations. Some of the northern locations are definitely sub-zero with respect to the wind chill, etc. So pretty tough out there these days, so stay inside and keep warm. I just checked now, even in sunny Tampa, it's sunny out, but we are 59 degrees right now with a high of 64, which to be honest with you is not bad. It was cool at night, down to 39. Tonight, that's our expectation, but it's a break from the humidity and the heat. Even if you're from the north, sometimes you don't mind a couple of weeks of this. So that's the scoop. But anyway, big news of today is just a couple hours ago, the, I guess you could say S&P Case-Shiller National Home Price Index was released. It's the most updated index number available. It includes the month of November. Now they do a calculation, a trailing 3-month calculation. So basically the overall calculation is September, October, November. They sort of average things out. But again, because November prices are in and the analysis is done, that's what they've released right now. So let's take a look at the information and we'll go from there. Well, overall home values increased 5.2% annually in November. That's down from 5.3% in October. So we actually have seen the first, well, I wouldn't say it's not a decrease in values, but it's a slowdown. So the previous month was 5.3 in October. November is 5.2. So even though it's a minimal decrease month over month, we still have an annual increase of 5.2%. But again, it's slowing down, everybody. So when we had, double digits before and we had 8, eights and sevens, now we're looking at low fives here. And again, with respect to November, still sales activity, inventory that has come on to the market that's going through and affecting prices and sales, going forward now is obviously not included in that November number because stuff is coming on in November. So realize that the Case-Shiller is a drag-along type of calculation, and it goes back a couple months to do its analysis. So some of the things that have happened recently, are not impacting this number. But it's at least interesting to note that things are slowing down. Now, the Case-Shiller has a national index, a 10-city composite, and a 20-city composite. So the 10-city composite annual increase fell to 4.3% in November. That's down from 4.7% from October. And the 20-city composite saw a 4.7% annual gain, down from 5% in October. That's kind of the scoop there. So the standouts for the numbers essentially are Las Vegas, Seattle, and Phoenix reported the highest year-over-year gains among the 20 cities. In November, Vegas led the way with a 12% year-over-year price increase, followed by Phoenix with 8.1%, and Seattle with 6.3%. Now, again, Vegas and Seattle, that will be coming down because of all the inventory that's come on in the past couple of months. So just realize that, we're going to see some forward-moving stuff in the next little while. So let's go through the composite right now, and everybody wants to hear it. And again, this is the top 20 cities in their composite. I know if your city's not on here, you can definitely look it up. Basically, just Google, Case-Shiller, and you're going to hit a bunch of websites that can further, break down locations, etc. So I'm just going to do some year-over-year changes. All right. So Atlanta had a 6.2% increase. Boston 5.6%. Charlotte, 5.5% increase. Chicago, a 3.1% increase. Cleveland, a 4.6% increase. Dallas, 4.0% increase. Denver, 6.2% increase. Detroit, 5.7% increase. Remember, this is year over year change from previous November to the current November, all right, 2017 to 18. Again, Vegas at 12%. Los Angeles, 4.4%. Miami at 5.0%, Minneapolis at 5.8%, State of New York 3.5%, Phoenix with 8.1%, Portland 4.4%, San Diego 3.3%, San Francisco 5.6%, again Seattle 6.3%, Tampa, where I live, at a 5.7%, and Washington, D.C. with a 2.7%. Again, that's year over year. November 2017 to November 2018, year-over-year percent increases on value. If I look at the month significantly changes though. So if I take a look at the difference between November and October, the changes are very, very small. In fact, some are negative. So basically, I'm going to say Atlanta 0.3%, Boston 0.1%, Charlotte 0.2%, Chicago negative 0.7%, Cleveland negative 0.7%, Dallas 0.2%, Denver negative 0.3%, Detroit negative 0.4%, Vegas was flat at 0, Los Angeles negative 0.3%, Miami up 0.3%, Minneapolis negative 0.2%, New York State 0.4%, Phoenix 0.3%, Portland negative 0.5%, San Diego negative 0.6%, San Francisco negative 0.7%, Seattle negative 0.7%, Tampa positive 0.4%, and Washington flat at 0%. So again, that was the percent change between October and to November. So clearly we see that there is no positive numbers that are over 1% here. And the biggest, I guess you could say, change was a 0.4% for Tampa and New York. So everything else was less than 4.4%. Twos and ones, and then we have a bunch of locations now: Chicago, Cleveland, San Fran, Seattle, that were negative 0.07%. So what we have now here are just the early indicators of, we'll say, market sort of plateauing and prices leveling out here. So when you're having, excuse me, a low percentage point or a tenth of a percentage points of increases, things are plateauing, and now we're seeing them go below the zero to the negative realm right now. And when I take a look, so if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So half of these markets, half of the top 20 composite index markets had a negative, so they actually lost value from month over month. And there were certainly 1 and 2 that were plateaued. So basically 8 out of the 12 had small increases. The rest either remained the same or had decreases in value. So that's kind of the interesting part. And again, I think it's somewhat frustrating. We know we're going to see different numbers. We know we're going to see more negative increases as time goes on. It's just the way, I guess, your Case-Shiller reviews this data and how they put it out, and the timing, of course. So, we're not, real-time data, unfortunately. We have to get the numbers in. We have to take a look at closed sales to review things. That's usually a couple of months. So here we are, end of January, and we're looking at November. So we're basically, we're a month and 2 months almost off at this point in time. But for me, going back to some of the things people are saying, it really is interesting, the fact that we've plateaued in these major markets now, and the growth is definitely slowing down. Predictions for me will be simple. More inventory comes on as we've seen, and sales will be effective. Longer days on market, longer sales cycle times, more competition with sellers, savvier buyers who are not afraid to ask for discounts and concessions and put in lower offers is the way it goes. So, and interesting to note how this Case-Shiller is playing out. And basically, we're about, from the peak of 2006 to where we are today, we were pretty much not changed from our previous peak. So we're just sort of holding, plateauing. I think the next month or two, we'll start to see it come down. All right, that's it for Case-Shiller. Interesting news from the Hamptons is, yes, we're at the bottom. Hampton's home sales fall 35% as owners refuse to cut prices. Basically, according to Bloomberg, an article in Bloomberg, that I guess you could say that the number of unsold homes on the market in the Hamptons has reached its highest level in 12 years, which is, quite a bit. And, I guess you could say the home purchases during Q4 tumbled a staggering 35%, the biggest drop since 2009. So very interesting to see that in some locations across the country. And again, I would say that the Hamptons are probably a little more affluent and home prices are a little more expensive there. So we're seeing some of the effects of higher interest rates, people not willing to pay prices. We're probably seeing the effect of SALT, the state and local taxes, because again, anything over $1 million, you're losing some of your deduction on taxes and mortgage interest. So interesting how that's going. Certainly an interesting quote here from a real estate broker saying, "It's hard to tell when you're at the bottom. you don't hear a thud, which is true. So I think the sense among brokers out there is, yes, we're at the bottom, and now it's probably a good time to encourage your buyers to make a move. So again, when you have a lot of inventory and a lot of people refusing to lower prices, do they have to sell? I don't know. Do they want to cash out? Maybe they do. But great buying market opportunity to jump in there and start, placing offers and seeing what you can get. Simple as that. All right. One more thing to talk about here, or actually two more things. Homeowners are thinking twice about remodeling because rates are rising, values aren't gaining as much, and fewer homes are selling. Excuse me. So I find this very interesting because after several years of a booming business, obviously, in the remodeling world, the growth is expected to slow down this year, and demand is slowing, obviously, because home value gains aren't expected to rise like they used to. So if you're looking to put your home on the market, what people typically do is they invest in their home. So they paint, they clean up, they make improvements, they do repairs, they do landscaping, they do things to give it that little extra curb appeal and pop so that your home stands out from the competition. Well, it looks like homeowners are saying to themselves, going, I don't see that value increasing as the year goes on, so I'm reluctant to spend the money on that, which is interesting. So that's really homeowner sentiment right there. And apparently new owners spend about 30% more on fixing up their new purchases than longtime residents. So you buy a house, you're going to maybe make some changes to do new flooring, painting, whatever that may be, to make it your own home in the way you like it, because you bought it and you're there and you want to stay and enjoy it. Whereas the current longtime residents are looking and going, we're not spending as much as the new people because we don't think it's worth it. We don't think we're going to get the value out of it, and quite frankly, maybe we're not going to sell. So they may be hunkering down, not wanting to move the property until things change. So I do think that's very interesting. And again, like I said before, when homeowners, remodeling activity goes hand in hand with home sales. So when you're preparing to sell a property, you're going to spend some money on doing some improvements, freshening up, curb appeal, whatever you want to call it, so that your home stands out. And that's not happening here, which I think is a direct thought with respect to where the market is going for a lot of people here. And one more thing to talk about, what I've also learned is first-time home buyers, they're the missing piece of the puzzle in our marketplace. I think that is correct. Purchase rates for this group remain 25% below the long-term average. And obviously the problem is exacerbated by the lack of starter homes available, as well as student debt on the books for the would-be buyers. So like we've spoken about a number of times, barriers to entry for potential buyers. It's a big market out there for them. They're not coming to the housing market like they used to. Too many things going on, too much debt, too many other, life things they want to achieve before buying a home. And again, home builders were not building entry-level homes. And when you take a look at home flippers, when they remodel, they're paying more for homes, they're costing, so those homes are costing more too. So it all makes sense. When you take a look at where the market has gone and where it's at today, and you see the segments that are buying and are not buying, it really does make sense. You can put the puzzle together for all these things. So just realize that the new home buyers are not, first-time home buyers down 25% as far as volume is concerned. All right. Excuse me, a little bit of a cold, as I said, chilly in our area, the neck of the woods here. So, interesting enough. So, we've just spoken about, values gaining but plateauing, so we're kind of there. What I haven't heard for a while, and maybe it's coming out in the next little bit, I don't know, but the amount of underwater mortgages that are still floating around across the U.S. here. So, if you go to the underwater mortgage segment, and again, the underwater mortgages are really classified or defined as your mortgage value is greater than your actual home's value in the appraised market. So if you owe 100, and your home is worth 75,000, you're negative equity, you're underwater. So that number is actually growing. Since the first housing crisis, the number of underwater homes was like 14 million, ton of them. And every month they kept going down, the number of underwater homes, which makes sense because values plummeted and then values started to rise. So they were at the lowest point here and they started to work their way out of the trough. Well, we had consecutive months or quarters of, less and less underwater homes until I think it was second quarter. I don't think the third quarter numbers out yet. The second quarter of this year, where guess what? We actually had an increase in underwater homes. So they plateaued and they went the other way. They stopped going down. They went back to more underwater homes, which is interesting. So I took a look at some information here, and this was actually published early January, and nobody picked it up. I didn't even see it until I did some research. But we've got 27 cities where more than 10% of the mortgages are underwater, which I find very, very interesting. And to me, if you take a look at what's gone on, you've had a previous housing, I guess you could say bubble, boom, bubble, bust, and crisis. And then we're back into what we call, out of the trough into a high water mark over the year, 11.6% back in the summer, above the last peak. So you would think there'd be a lot of people that would have gained value and have come out of the underwater situation. That's not the case as far as numbers are concerned. So you've got locations like Hartford, Connecticut, 43% underwater mortgages. Now this is according to, a website called gobankingrates.com. So obviously mortgage type organization there. So they pulled this data and they did their analysis. This is not the this is not the Adam Data underwater home report that comes out that I typically look at. This came out early January. So again, not disputing the credibility of this, but the fact that this is out before the Adam Data one. So Hartford, 43%. Jacksonville, Florida, 39%. Detroit, Michigan, top three, 36%. Cleveland, 31%. Newark, New Jersey, 29%. Milwaukee, 24%. Chicago, 23%. Toledo, 23%. Baltimore, 22%. Norfolk, Virginia, 22%. Columbus, Ohio, 21%. Birmingham, Alabama, 21%. Atlanta, Georgia, 20% underwater. Kansas City, Missouri, 19% underwater. Vegas, even though Vegas, posted that 12% increase, year over year, which is pretty spectacular in November, they still have 16% underwater rate here. So that's not a good thing. Indianapolis, Indiana, 16%. Virginia Beach, 15%. Memphis and Philadelphia, 15%. Tucson, 14%. And now we've got Cincinnati, Richmond, and Fresno, 13%. Miami, 13% also. Albuquerque, 12%. And Tampa at 11%. So these are 27 cities where more than 10% of the mortgages are underwater. And I know from my Tampa, I know that that's true because I see a lot of homes, and there still are people who are suffering pre-foreclosure situations or took such money out of their home as equity and they haven't recovered yet. So it is what it is. So again, we're back into this sort of dichotomy of the real estate market. We're seeing plateaus. Now we're starting to see more information of who's underwater. To cure underwater is you sell your home and you got to bring that difference to pay off your mortgage to sell. So you come out really, with zero, but you've paid off your mortgage. Or you do a short sale and you have the lender settle with you, and they take the loss and you take the hit as well too. And that's really kind of it. So, or you're house poor and you stay in your house, you maintain your mortgage payment, and you hope that one day values will increase and you can get out of the underwater situation. Now, if you're into locations that are 20% and above underwater, and we're now in markets where, or in a real estate market that has plateaued or are showing signs of plateau and now tipping the other end on the decrease side, these are where people are going to be stuck, because if you're already 20% plus underwater, if the market goes down 5%, 10%, 15%, then your underwater value just increases more and more. So that's the difference in what's going on. So there's pockets of the country that have a substantial amount of mortgages that aren't faring well these days with respect to values. And it could be as simple as that. People bought at the peak over the past couple of years, and they took mortgages with little down payment, 3% mortgages, other interesting mortgages out there. And now when there's shift in values, they become exposed. So as I always say, you put 3% down and the market changes 5%, you're negative immediately. And then you add closing costs and commissions if you want to vend out your property, and then you're double digit underwater. So how do you do that? And it gets people stuck in their homes. It can cause to other financial issues like pre-foreclosure down the road if things change, if employment changes, or you have to sell to relocate, or whatever the story is. So realize there are problems with this. But I did find this interesting to see that there's that many of these homes that are underwater. And it's not the homes, it's the percent of mortgages over 10% underwater. So realize it's not 43% of the homes in Hartford, it's 43. Many cities have underwater mortgages over 10%. So 43% of the mortgages, the mortgaged homes in that location are technically underwater. So that's what we got going on here, guys. So interesting to know that, again, I just feel that we're sort of in this holding pattern here. We're seeing a number of peripheral signs that the market is changing. I know that if you're in your own home market, you're going to see signs that obviously I'm not seeing, and just differences. I can tell you that, for Florida, and I'll do a video on Florida because people have asked about that. So I pulled the Florida data for December. Virtually every Florida major market, had a slowdown in sales, a slowdown in value increase, and had a double-digit plus increase in inventory, year over year from December to December. So, even in my neck of the woods, I'm starting to see these numbers come into play now. And as I've always said, it's still too early to start seeing some true declines, but I think we're pretty much prepared to see it happen, and it's up to people to figure out how to navigate that. So that's what I say, is the fact that, if you're looking to sell, you may want to, consult your local real estate professional and take a look at what's going on in your marketplace. Does it make sense? Do you want to wait for a bit? What's your competition? What's going on in your local market? I mean, you got to figure this out now. And if you're going to sell, you need to be competitive. You can't, you don't want to put your price too high and your house sits there with extra days on market, it gets no showings, and then, you're not moving your house and it doesn't look good and it's used against you in negotiation. So you got to figure these type of things out. On the buy side, simple. People have asked me, should I buy? Well, if it's your primary residence, I can't really advise you on what you should or should not do. I don't know your personal situation, but you look for deals. And my point is, as time goes on, prices will drop. As time goes on, more inventory will come on, which gives you more choice, which allows you the flexibility of placing lower offers and seeing what people come back. The worst they can say is no, then you go on to the next property. So I think, you'll be pleasantly surprised if you wait a little bit, not just wait, but just, I guess, be a little more educated in your market and take a look at what's out there and see what's going on. From the investment side, the one thing that scares me is, buying a property that has to be rehabbed and you're looking at what's called ARV, after repair value, because, the ARV people, and I see this all the time with people who are, showing their properties and trying to sell investment properties they get for this concept, is that, they're using 2 or 3 months worth of comps, maybe even going farther back to justify some good numbers now, looking forward, 6 months. Because on average, a fix and flip rehab type project takes on average 6 months, if not a bit more. So you're going back in time to look at comparables to give you a value that you think you're going to get 6 months down the road, when we know that the market has effectively peaked and we're starting to see signs that it's starting to decrease month over month and more inventory is coming on. So, if I'm looking at an ARV price that someone's given me, I'm definitely taking that with a grain of salt and looking to see what's going to happen down there. I'm going to make some adjustments on my ARV because I don't want to take a risk and be in a situation where I can't sell this property and I've made a mistake and I'm losing money or I'm stuck with the property. So you got to keep all this stuff in mind. And this is the problem of a dynamic changing market, as we don't have a crystal ball, but we do know what's gone on in the last housing crisis. So that's our example. And as I mention all the time, the majority of things that are happening now did occur back in the last housing crisis. And I don't know whether you were involved with it, were you paying attention? Did you sell your house? Did you buy a house? Did you lose your house? Did you modify your mortgage? Did you refi? Who knows what you did? But if you actually take a look at the number of things and what they are, they're here again, maybe in different formats or different, we'll say just the different way they've hit us, but all the items are there as far as I'm concerned. So that's the scoop. So everybody, once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for the subscribers. If you like what you hear and want to learn more, please subscribe to the channel. And once again, thanks for the likes. Thanks for the comments. If I can be of any assistance to people, which I know people are inquiring, excuse me, so I do appreciate that. And I'll do my best to get back to you. The voice is going. So again, have a good week. We'll look forward to speaking with you later on in the week. Thank you.